Yeah, I'll just introduce myself real quick. My name is Kevin McKeever. I'm on the university partnerships team here. So mostly work with prospective institutions who are interested in supporting student success or degree audit initiatives on their campus. And Vickie?
My name is Vickie Woodhead. I actually, my entire career prior to joining Stellic was in higher ed. So prior to joining the team, I was a Stellic user. I was an academic advisor for 6 years, Stellic user for 4 of those, so transitioned to Stellic and used it for some time. And within Stellic, I am a partner success manager. So what this means is I am working with our active partner institutions to onboard and work for the duration of their partnership with us. So I do a lot of training, a lot of handle a lot of user requests and all sorts of stuff. So I'll be adding a lot of the stories from our partners as we go along.
Oh.
All right, so we just want to set the stage a little bit for what we're going to talk about today. So the big question that we want to answer is, why are institutions adopting a next generation degree audit? There are lots and lots of solutions out there for auditing, and what makes Stellic apart from other softwares that you may have seen or worked with. So we have 4 different pieces to this. We just have very few slides, just going to do a little bit of stage setting for what we're talking about today. Talk a little bit about what the Stellic Degree Management Suite is, and what this encompasses, what it looks like. And then we'll spend the meat of our presentation here today within a demo, and then leave some time at the end to ask questions. But like I said, please feel free to ask questions through the chat function at any point throughout this presentation. Okay, so one of the big reasons that Stellic even exists in the first place is to help solve some situations and issues that are really common on campuses. So one of the big pieces that we're going to be focusing on today is the degree audit. Some really common scenarios and issues that we see on many, many campuses are degree audits, and by degree audits, we're talking about the degree requirements, right, required for students in order to complete programs and degrees within institutions. That maintenance is often limited to specialists and often happening behind closed doors. So this is looks different campus to campus, right? But if you have any kind of software or system to manage requirements currently, it's probably not a very transparent one, and it takes a lot of really specialized knowledge to know how to manage that. Along with that, we all know that there are constantly limited resources within institutions, and that has been particularly relevant in the era of COVID. But we're working with more things to do, less resources to make those things happen. And in general, anytime we're talking about degree requirements or degree processes, they are often complicated and take a ton of time. We've worked with several of our partner institutions that have signed on saying that their degree clearance process took months, and they really wanted a solution that was going to help decrease that time. Also, I mean, I'm sure that many of you have seen some of these different grade requirements and degree changes that are needed for COVID-19 that have resulted in a lot of cumbersome, complicated management that also really needed to happen really quickly, right? And so with some solutions, that's not really easy to navigate. So we wanted to just talk a little bit about how we've managed some of those solutions as well.
Great. So while our vision is an end-to-end student success platform, a degree management suite, we do take a modular approach. We understand that different institutions have both short-term and long-term needs, so we want to accommodate them. Today, we'll mainly be focusing on the audit. We will touch on organically the reporting and planner modules as well. And we will probably not be looking at scheduling and advising. If you're interested in other modules for your institution, we're happy to cover that at a later date, but just wanted to make sure the context of today's demonstration was clear. And we're also fortunate enough to be working with a breadth of institutions, from large public R1s to small private liberal arts schools, to seminaries, to graduate programs. We work with all institutions of shapes and sizes. And at any point, if you are interested in hearing about their story or connecting with folks at these institutions, we're happy to set that up for you. So with that, we are going to jump into the platform here. I will say, so the platform is two-sided in that it was started by students and for students. That's the end goal, right? But of course, advisors, registrars, other university leaders use it as well. Today, a little different than what we would normally do for a demonstration. We are going to start on the audit side and as well as the university leader side. But if you have any questions about who sees what, or kind of the layout differences, we're happy to address those. But really, to start with the audit, it is the true building block of what makes Stellic, Stellic. Here, we'll look at different programs and the different requirements and sub-requirements for each program. So if I were to click into a certain major, now I want to kind of preface this with, this might look totally different than your degree audit now. It might look similar. We are willing to take in all of your degree audit information from your SIS or wherever it is right now. What we find is when we're first setting up Stellic, we will do that. And then in subsequent years, most users will iterate and make changes within the Stellic system just because they found it more simplistic to use, more intuitive. And I hope that shows through. So for this, we have a computer science degree. And say, I wanted to just look at the requirements, I can do so. If I were to be building an audit, say I'm changing the entry year from 2020 to 2021. So, whether we change requirements for COVID in the past, or we have new course offerings, or we want to make requirements more stringent or lenient, whatever it may be, I can go into different program requirements. And say I go into Calculus 1 here, I can see the courses that would fulfill that requirement. If I want to add a course that would also fulfill that requirement, I can search for the course. I can, add a category. I can pick a shared category that I've used in the past or another user has used in the past. And it's as easy as typing, for a certain course and adding it right here. Similarly, if I want to, drag and drop a course to another requirement, I can easily do that. We understand that there are also, constraints that you might have that you might want to accommodate. We've, fielded feedback from all of our institutions, and I think we have around 100 restraints added into the system. Vickie would probably know more, but say I wanted to add a restraint for the math course. So, a common example would be minimum grade requirement, or you can't take more than X amount of courses in a certain department. Whatever it may be for your institution, the system can accommodate that. Don't want to get too into the weeds for what this looks like. And I don't know, Vickie, if you have anything to add here or color.
Yeah, a couple different pieces. One, Kevin, as we kind of came into the system, clicked on this major. We get this information from your student information system. So there are a couple places where we really want Stellic to not be editable, where the source of truth is coming directly from the institution. So any program types, program names, and courses, right? This is all information that's directly fed from the SIS. So not things that we are making up within Stellic, right? So that's easily accessible. And then, like Kevin mentioned, we have lots of constraints. We have worked with lots of institutions on lots of weird, different kind of nuanced pieces. There's a question here about free text. We do have some options for free text. Not a ton. We just want to add a little bit of descriptive text here. There are some other places in the platform where we allow for a lot more descriptive text that we are not going to touch on too much today. But the constraints are the rules of the audit. And so while we have lots and lots of diversity and lots of options to really get a lot of those nuanced requirements happening, I tell people that I can teach you how to build an audit within an hour. It might not be every single thing that you need. If you have really complicated degree requirements, right, it's going to take a little bit more time and we can work together on that. But so different. When I was a user within Stellic, I used our old degree audit system, which actually is, you probably never heard of it. We're the only ones using it at the time. It had this really archaic, complicated, unique coding system that took forever to learn. So moving from that system to this, which really really is, right, what Kevin just demonstrated is our actual degree management system, or audit editing system. It's so different than what I was used to, way easier. And one final note right before we move on is that the permissions to edit the audit and also publish the audit can be totally controlled and totally differentiated. So Kevin is able to come in here and click on edit and then publish those changes because he has those permissions. We have some institutions that are managing that all centrally through one office that they're, right, they are the chief of all degree requirements. We have other institutions that are delegating some of those changes to other departments or offices, but then that final publishing ability comes back to, right, like a central registrar's office, for instance. So really customizable levels of permissions here.
Yep. Thanks, Vickie. And yeah, happy to answer more questions on this. I think the main takeaway is it doesn't require learning a new coding language that one person on campus knows, and if they were to get hit by a bus, then there's a problem. Or it doesn't require outsourcing to the vendor themselves for them to build the audit for you. We really want to make this easy to use to empower you all to do it yourself, because I think that's the preferred method when you're changing semester to semester, year to year. But let's see how this relates to the student. So once we have these audits built, we can look on a student by student basis, and the student themselves can see how exactly their courses align with the degree audit. So I went into this sample student here, Lexi Lynn, and really all relevant academic information that I want to know from Lexi Lynn is found here in the Stellic platform. So this might live in your SIS right now, so we can pull that over, but it's much more comprehensive than that. So other than year and program, and we can add tags, undergraduate or graduate, financial aid, first generation. These are customizable and extendable to whatever your institution would prefer. Here we have a degree progress bar, which is unique to Stellic, where you can see at any time against your desired degree, your major and your minor, how many courses have you taken, how many do you have in your plan, and we'll go into the planning in a moment, so that might make more sense then. And then how many courses do you have remaining in order to graduate? Other relevant information, advisors, sometimes we'll see a faculty advisor, a professional advisor, and a resource center over here, so they understand there are different resources and support functions on campus. And then right below here, we get into the contextualized and individualized degree audit for Lexi Lynn. So I can see, for my liberal education requirements, the sub requirement being writing intensive, how am I fulfilling that? Am I fulfilling that through a transfer credit, through high school credit, through a course that I took at this institution? Full understanding there. For the requirements that I don't have, the ones in red, or is it a double counting function where a course from another department or requirement is counting toward that? Say I want to better understand what courses would fulfill this requirement. Now we're bringing in the course catalog right here on the right side, and 746 courses to fulfill a requirement might be a lot for your institution. This is a demo environment, but say it's 10 courses. I can look at these 10 courses and think about what one I want to take. I can also filter based off semesters, department. We'll go more into this on the planning stage, but just want to point out, the snapshot in time of where the student is and understanding how they're filling their requirements right now. Did I miss anything, Vickie, or is there anything that you want to add there?
There's a couple different pieces that I want to point out, which is if you scroll back up to the top of the profile, Kevin, these tags that are indicated here for undergraduate, on financial aid, first generation, this is information that we're receiving directly from the institution. So these are not set fields. I have another institution that's using this to track PhD candidacy, for instance, but anything that you can add as a tag is actually also something that we can filter for degree requirements. And so Stellic is pretty unique in the sense that it's not just courses that can be programmed into requirements. So if we go to the bottom of this student, Kevin, we have some non-course requirements that are programmed here in terms of financial aid. So we're looking at, right, this is a student that's on financial aid. And so there are different kind of requirements that we're tracking here, really based just on this financial aid requirement. It's really modular, the system. And so this student could add a minor, right? And that would show up here along with its own separate double counting rules. I've seen lots of graduate institutions use dual degree, right? Students with a lot of ease because of the double counting rules. And then the other piece that we're not going to spend a ton of time focusing on today, but that is super, super cool, is the ability to do this what if scenario. So if we scroll back up to the top, Kevin,
Yep.
and then click on the plus sign in Lexi's profile, we can add other programs, which gives the student the idea to try on something that they don't actually have declared. So the progress bar will then change as a result of what kind of programs we're adding. Students can search for programs and see what their progress looks like against those types of things. So this is not only tracking progress for declared and active programs, it's also able to look for progress on things that students are maybe thinking about doing, or just, you know, wondering what would this look like if I were to, you know, see what happens if I were to switch or add this.
Great.
And then lastly,
Yeah.
do we want to talk about exceptions here, Kevin?
Yeah, I was just about to go into that. Do you want to speak to that?
So we know that no matter how meticulously you have tracked your degree requirements and made these audits exactly what you need, there are always going to be exceptions, right? Instances where students are taking something that's non-traditional, or maybe you just have I've seen lots of liberal arts schools, for instance, have really open requirements where they need to approve what students are taking. So there are a lot of different mechanisms within Stellic to accommodate that. So you can see Kevin is clicking on a requirement. There are multiple options to either waive the requirement, to add another course that's not typically allowed to count. You can waive or modify constraints. So maybe the requirement says you have to take 3 courses, but for this student who's a transfer, they only need to take 1 course. So there's lots and lots of things that we can change. Anytime an exception is added, it is only for the student. So this is not making changes to the audit as a whole. It is only making changes to this particular student. And this is all data that is then reportable, that we'll see in a little bit later.
Yeah. Happy to answer more questions on that later, because that usually is a big time saver and convenient for a lot of institutions. But I will go into the plan now. So degree audit on their profile, that's a snapshot, right? That's where they are currently. If I want to look at a timeline orientation of where I've come from and where I'm going, that's super valuable to the student. So I am logged in as an advisor or a registrar or a university leader right now. But if we go to the side-by-side view, this would mirror what the student sees themselves, right? And, you know, as Lexi Lynn, I'm looking at, okay, I finished my year 1, and these are the courses that I took in fall and spring 2020. I may have registered for, you know, for certain courses this upcoming year. But let's look at a future year or a future semester and see what we can do and play around with. So one thing I'll point out is prerequisites. So if I hover over machine architecture and organization, you see that introduction to operating systems grays out. What does that mean? If I were to be playing around with my fall 2021 semester and I try to remove a certain course, the system will let me know that it's a prerequisite for a future course that I, you know, plan on taking. So it won't let me make that mistake and mess up a future semester. Similarly, from like a scheduling standpoint, if I'm dragging and dropping courses around, the system will let me know, you know, this course is not usually offered in the fall, usually it's in the spring, or this course is usually every other year, or maybe I drag something and it messes up my prerequisites. It's a, you know, 3-dimensional integrated system where, you know, as the student's planning, they have all the information at their fingertips so that they don't make an error. You might notice that the degree audit is also on this page as well. So if I hover over different requirements, it shows me what courses are being used to fulfill that. Maybe I want to find the courses or the requirements that I'm not fulfilling right now and add that to my plan. Now you also might notice that, you know, this is a lot of coursework. You know, a student, you know, a traditional 4-year student might have to come in and add 60 courses. That's not the expectation of Stellic. It's, we want to provide them with a template. We call them pathways, where if they, you know, desire to be a computer science major, they can choose from, you know, different tracks within the system so that it brings over a lot of the coursework. And you might notice there's a difference between solid lines and dotted lines. Solid lines are specific course suggestions for the student, while dotted line is a placeholder, and it's more so like a requirement reflection in their plan. So if I say, okay, I know I need an organic chemistry 2 requirement at some point. If I click on that dotted line, it shows me the 2 courses that would fulfill that requirement. And I might want to choose between the 2 before adding it to my plan. So I can say, okay, this course looks interesting. I can go a layer deeper. And Vickie, this might be a good time for you to jump in so I don't speak too much, but I know this is super valuable for the students.
We have had students and advisors alike tell us that they live their entire term, right, semesters within this view. And one of the great things, I think Kevin mentioned, this is exactly what students see. We're looking from an administrator point of view, but this is the exact same view that students see. Any changes that we make here are also reflected on the student. So we could do, actually have one advisor that we work with who actually says they don't like to do screen sharing. What they will actually do is work from this from a student perspective and from their perspective. So they're both working in Stellic simultaneously, right? That's just their preference. And so then they can also have their note-taking applications up and all the other things that they're worried about the student potentially seeing. And so they're just using the same platform together simultaneously from their different perspectives, but able to see the same pieces. And then Kevin, right, has brought up on the side here this course sidebar. So not only is there a lot of information right in the planner itself about where to put things, this is also going to give a lot of detailed information about specific courses. Again, information that we're getting from your student information system. One of the things that students and admins alike tend to find really helpful are the course offerings. So this shows here the last several course terms that this particular course was offered. So we will use this data to also make smart predictions about when a course may be offered again. So that way, if a student adds a course in the summer that's typically only been offered in spring, we'll pop up a little message that says, hey, right, this is maybe not going to be offered at this time. And then they could look to see when it will be offered. We also have had some institutions add some additional data here. So this is customizable. So one cool example that we've seen is one institution actually has textbook information that's listed within this course description with a link to their bookstore. And so then the student can just click on there and then go right to the shopping cart to the bookstore.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. And this might be an appropriate time, just real briefly, for those who haven't heard it. It's like Stellic's founding story, they were then students at the time at Carnegie Mellon. And while they were going through this process that we're doing right now on the Stellic platform, it was super disjointed. I'm looking at a course catalog in a PDF. I'm going to the registrar's website or wherever it is and looking at the degree requirements, maybe in the SIS. I'm communicating with my advisor over email or phone or in person, and then I'm planning my degree on paper or on an Excel sheet or wherever it was, right? Like 4 or 5 different spots where for us, we bring this all together right in front of the student, contextualized to them so they know exactly how they're tracking, exactly what their plan looks. Once it's good to go, I can send it to my advisor. I can communicate with my advisor in the platform. Just a really, much more personalized, intuitive experience, really, which a lot of students, have found very, very valuable. With that, I'm going to go to some of the reporting and analytics. And again, as we embrace the degree audit, that keeps showing through at different points of the platform, but also kind of in light of the founding story, a tool is only as valuable as it's being used, right? And we find, whether it's an SIS or some other systems, the average engagement across these was around 20–25%. Stellic, with its relentless effort to be student-centric, averages over 85% student adoption and advisor adoption across all of our institutions. And what that allows for us to do is to make a lot more data-driven decisions because the data is that much more complete and accurate. So this is one example that we can, help with your institution. So this is a real world example, a course at a partner institution where, historically you're seeing the registration go down year over year. And if you're sitting in a registrar seat or academic leader seat, you might say, okay, we can offer one section with 20 students and we should be good to go. But when you have 90% of students using this platform and they have this course in their plan for spring 21, and all of a sudden it's 70 students, what happens when we come out with one section and we have a 50 student wait list? Like think about how much that would affect the students in your institution. So having the foresight to know what's in their plans and be more thoughtful about what courses to offer, how many sections to offer, And then all the relevant metadata over here, student distribution, what courses are taken with this so that we don't offer it at the same time and there's a time conflict. Popular majors, instructors, grade distributions, really all the relevant, academic data at your fingertips so that you make the, most informed decision, for your institution. Anything to add to what I just said there, Vickie?
I think along the lines of what Kevin is saying, we've heard from our partners that this data is really, really valuable when doing course planning. So actually just a couple of weeks ago, I had someone tell me that they were thinking about not offering a course in the summer, right? So their course planning person, right, contacted their director of advising who has access to this tool, said, we're thinking about not offering this course. He checked out the analytics and said, hey, we do actually have 8 students that are currently have this course in their plan for the summer. Maybe it'd be worth us adding a section. Similarly, right, there are cases I've heard where they're thinking about canceling a course. And so they, right, or not thinking about, they're going to cancel the course. And so then they can come in here and determine exactly what students have that course in their plan for that term, how that's going to affect them. Is this a needed graduation requirement, right? What is this going to do? Or just reach out to those students from the platform and say, hey, right, we've made this decision to not offer this course that we see that you have in your plan for a particular term. So lots and lots of really, really powerful forecasting tools.
Great. Thanks, Vickie. Another really neat report that adds a lot of value to institutions is looking at a program and the requirements and how the student body in the aggregate applies to that. And that might not make complete sense, but let's go into it here. So we were using the computer science program earlier, and I do not know how to spell. I think it was the BS in computer science. So if we can look at different audit versions, so I think we'll go with, let's go 2018. So now we're looking at the computer science program, all of the requirements and all the students with entry year 2018 audit applied to them and how they're tracking in the aggregate to each requirement. So for example, Calculus 1, 45 students have fulfilled this requirement, 3 have it planned later, and 3 do not have it in their plan. Now, if we're talking entry year 2018 and they're hoping to graduate in 3 semesters from now, 2.5 semesters from now, they should probably have this in their plan. So say I want to find out, who these students are, I can click in through that number 3, and it would bring me to who these 3 students are. And from here, and this touches a little bit on the advising functionality that, we said we weren't really going to go into today. But I can, again, similar to how we went into Lexi Lynn earlier, I can go into their profile, see their plan. I can communicate with them via email or text saying, where the heck is Calculus 1? I can, save this as a report, and we'll go into graduation tracking in a moment here. But anything to add or anywhere you want me to go on this page, Vickie?
So 2 things that I want to point out. One, on the left-hand side are the exceptions. So like I had said before, anything that we put within Stellic is now reportable data. And so any exceptions that are made on this particular audit are tracked here, not only who are making those exceptions, but what requirements are those exceptions being made on. So we've had lots of folks tell us that this is really valuable data when they're looking at curriculum changes. What are the requirements that are constantly being made exceptions, right? Like maybe there's a change that needs to be made. Another really popular feature that we have, Kevin, if you click on any of these requirement names that are bold, any requirement that allows for more than one course to fulfill it, what we do here is actually show which courses are being taken and how many students take them. So we've, right, I had one institution recently tell me that their department was thinking about redoing what electives are required for their program. Sorry, words are hard right now. And this was really helpful for them to be able to see, okay, well, we offer, right, 9 different courses for this requirement. What are students actually taking? Maybe the courses that no one has taken are things that we should drop out of here. Or if there's student or courses that 90% of our students are taking, should we just add this into the curriculum? So lots and lots of data to help drive decisions around curricula here.
Great. And we did want to leave 10-15 minutes for Q&A, so I'll just briefly touch on this. You can set up all sorts of tracking functions. So we've kind of touched on the filters that you can play with. So if you want to filter by year or performance or whatever it may be. In this case, say we want to look at all the students that have applied for graduation. We can see here that basic information about the student. their major, their minor, their degree progress bar again, really a quick look at how all these students are doing, similar to before, if we need to communicate with them. Vickie, I believe some institutions like to generate reports. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, so there's a couple different pieces that folks tend to find really helpful, particularly in preparing for the degree clearance process. When we click on this printer icon, there's a couple different options that happen here. One is you can see that this is generating a report for the 141 students that we have, in this instance, students that have applied for graduation. The standard report that we print here creates an audit report, so individual program audit for every student that displays what they've taken and what is remaining. We also have this really useful feature. One of our institutions said that this saved us multiple levels of reports when they were doing their degree clearance process, which is called the remaining requirements report. So instead of printing an individual degree audit for every single student, what this does is actually just prints a CSV of all of the students that we have in our list and what their remaining requirements are. So it's a way to get really quickly data on, do these students have remaining requirements, right? These are the students that have applied for graduation. Do they have more remaining requirements than we anticipated? Or specifically, what are these courses that they're expected to take, particularly, again, around course planning processes? If we know that there are 17 graduating students that still have this particular requirement, that's probably something that we should be offering next term. So lots and lots of useful pieces at a really, really quick, accessible report. So this is, I call it one of our hidden gems, one of our really, really popular features that I think is super cool.
Great, thanks for that, Vickie. Okay, with that, I don't want to throw too much of a demonstration at you. Would love to hear what you're thinking, hear any questions. I'll just leave some of this up here, but now we'd like to open the floor for commentary from the attendees.
Largest size school we have worked with. We are currently in the process of implementing with, I think, 36,000 student institution.
Yeah, I mean, and then what would Carnegie Mellon's global presence is probably upwards of 40,000.
I should know this answer. Yeah, I think at least 16,000.
I don't see the questions from my side, so you'll have
Banner
to call.
Oh, you can't see the questions? Oh, sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Do we work with Banner SIS schools? Yes, we have lots and lots of Banner SIS schools. We work with Banner schools, PeopleSoft schools, several homegrown audit or homegrown SIS schools. So we've seen lots and lots of different kinds of implementation from our end.
Yeah, just to add to that, since we were founded at Carnegie Mellon and they had a homegrown SIS, we say that we're SIS agnostic because we truly have worked with a lot of the main players, but we've also worked with, again, homegrown systems, so we're familiar just how to extract the data and integrate with these systems.
Okay, Kevin, we have a question. Can you talk about schools who opt into part of your service and how they integrate with other similar systems?
Other similar systems outside the SIS, I'm going to take that as, or similar systems that touch part of the student success journey?
Correct. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you do, have a system that supports one or several of these modules, whether it's degree planning, whether it's advising, we would connect with those systems. So, to give you an example, say you do have a degree planner tool right now, and you're interested in more of the audit and advising and scheduling, we would collect that data from that system and just use the modules, Stellic modules for the gaps at your institution. I know that's kind of vague, but it's hard to answer without specifics. But we've definitely integrated with non-SIS systems and tools before.
And we have several different ways of doing integration. I'm not a tech person, so I'm going to speak to this to the best of my ability, but a lot of people will choose to do just one-way integration where they are sending us files with information that Stellic is then digesting. I think the world is your oyster, really, for the kinds of things that we can choose to integrate. We're currently talking with one of our institutions about pulling in data from their study abroad system. So, right, if you can dream it, we want to make it happen, right? We're a new young company and can pride ourselves on being really responsive. So I think there are probably lots of things that we haven't done yet that we would be excited to tackle, but I know we have done direct integration, in particular, two-way two-way communication integration with UAchieve in particular. So we had one institution where they really liked their degree audit. We're not totally sure if they wanted to separate from that, so we did a part-time integration with them for a short period of time. And how we worked with degree works.
Yep. Yeah. So kind of alluded to that in my degree planner example, but yeah, that is a system that we've integrated with.
I will note that while we do support lots of integrations, we've had several instances of folks that have integrated and then decided that Stellic was a one-stop shop and decided that, right, not to get too salesy, but I think one of the things that
Vickie,
people
you're not on
tend
the
to really
sales
like
team. What is
is
this?
one of the things that people tend to like a lot is that we just have a lot of information and it's really easy to use. But we are happy to work with you where you're at, right? So we are obviously enthusiastic about our product. We're encompassing of many different solutions. Any other questions or anything that you'd like to see demoed again? May not be possible to answer, but can you give us some idea on cost? That one's a you question, Kevin.
Yeah. Sorry for kind of the vague answer. So we do it on a per student basis. So, you know, your seminary institution with 500 students is obviously not paying the same as your large public R1. And it also varies on if you're doing individual modules, what modules, you know, you're doing full stop shop. Happy to give you a more concrete answer if you're curious, and, you know, I can follow up with you, but we're talking a huge range, so I can't really answer that. If there are no other questions, I will just add, because I get this question all the time, is implementation and timeline.
Oh, that was a question that just got asked. That's perfect, Kevin.
Oh,
How long does integration usually take?
I promise I don't see. Okay, yeah. We say, you know, for smaller institutions, it depends how many programs you have. But usually we're set up in 2 to 3 months, you know, sometimes 4 months if we want a slower rollout. For larger institutions, we'll say 4 months, but it's not your year-long SIS implementation. You know, we have a modern framework. You know, we're based in the cloud, Amazon Web Services. You know, we're a young, agile company. We've been around for about 5 years. And that implementation methodology, you know, so is relatively new. But to answer that kind of in short, you know, it's a 2 to 4 month process, and then it's in the hands of students and advisors and registrars, which is great.
And this is where I come in directly, right? So I do help institutions with implementation. I think that there are a lot of varying needs. So this is, I think, Kevin, sometimes, right, we say this timeline, people are like, that's not real. It's not real for everybody, but I think if you have a data structure that you already like, you know exactly what it is that you're looking for, it can be as few as 4 months. We have dedicated integration specialists that you'll get. You'll have a partner success person, right, that's going to help you along this process. We typically, for larger institutions, are not doing a full campus rollout in that timeline, right? But we are going to get some folks in the platform to start getting data. We usually call it an alpha launch, where we are launching to a small number of programs and students to get some feedback, right, and kind of iterate on that, and for a larger campus rollout. But there is some activity happening within the first 6 months for sure. Any other nuggets you got for us, Kevin? I don't see any other questions right now.
Not really. We can give people a few minutes back in their day. You know, if anything that we said today interests you, if you have any questions, you know, please reach out. There's an email here on the screen, partnerships@stellic.com. You can also email me, mckeever@stellic.com. You know, even if it's just a conversation, you know, if your institution is well suited for us or not, that's okay. But, you know, we love having these conversations, hearing what you all are working on, how you've dealt with the last, you know, crazy 6 to 12 months. You know, we just love to connect. So, you know, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm sure, you know, through registration, we might have some of your information, and we, you know, might send you other webinars or, you know, just information about Stellic. But yeah, I would just, you know, suggest that as a parting note. And again, thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone.